Now I'm going to begin reading you a rather large portion of a book that I've already read, but I'm reading this part again. It's the Nikola Tesla story, and it's part of the book by Margaret Storm called The Return of the Dove. I have this book as a PDF file. If anyone is interested, it's a book that's out of print nowadays. It would be a hard thing to find. So if you want this one, let me know. Of course, I'll have to know your email address so I can send it to you there. But I want to read this part because it's important to know about Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla was not an Earthman. The space people have stated that a male child was born on board a spaceship which was on a flight from Venus to the Earth in July 1856. The little boy was called Nikola. The ship landed at midnight between July the 9th and 10th in a remote mountain province in what is now Yugoslavia. There, according to arrangements, the child was placed in the care of a good man and his wife, the Reverend Newton and Djuka Tesla. I'm sorry, I don't pronounce these names to it. The space people released this information in 1947 to Arthur H. Matthews of Quebec, Canada, an electrical engineer who from boyhood was closely associated with Tesla. In 1944, a year after the death of Tesla, the late John J. O'Neill, then science editor of the New York Herald Tribune, wrote an excellent story of Tesla's life and work entitled Prodigal Genius. As a reporter, O'Neill frequently interviewed Tesla and had the greatest respect for the Superman. But O'Neill lacked the occult understanding necessary to correctly interpret the extraordinary powers which set Tesla apart from this world. O'Neill made the common error of assuming that Tesla had died as do ordinary mortals, that his work was finished, and that he left no disciples. O'Neill could not have been more mistaken. In the first place, Tesla was not immortal according to Earth standards. Being a Venusian, he is now able to work on Earth in his subtle body with far greater facility than when in his physical body. Tesla carefully trained certain disciples to continue his physical plane work under his supervision after he had shed his physical body. He entrusted Arthur H. Matthews of Canada with many tasks, at least two of which are of vital current interest: the Tesla Interplanetary Communications Set and the Tesla Anti-War Machine. Mr. Matthews built a model Tesla set for interplanetary communications in 1947 and has operated it successfully since. However, he is tuned in only on spaceships thus far, for the set has a limited range. He is now engaged in building a more elaborate set and will be able to speak more freely of it since he is incorporating many of his own inventive ideas in it. The original design was given to him in confidence by Tesla, and he naturally does not intend to violate that confidence. And I will interject here, this was written, I don't know exactly when. I didn't put down the date it was written when I typed this book. And I gave it away. It was signed by the original author, Margaret Storm. I should have never given that book away, but I did. So since then, though, Matthews and Carr and Otis T. Carr, they've been stopped. Otis Carr did build a spaceship, but it was confiscated by the government. So do know, as I read this is true at one point, but some of these things that we will be reading about here didn't actually get to be, but you want to hear this anyway. Just interject that so you'll know. Mr. Matthews has the complete design for the anti-war machine, ready and waiting for any nation which has the courage to use it. Tesla designed the anti-war machine in 1935, but Mr. Matthews has worked on it constantly since, incorporating in it many major improvements. The remarkable achievements of both Matthew and Carr are covered in later chapters of this book. But it may be said here that Tesla is in no sense a disembodied spirit seeking to communicate with disciples and guiding them from the astral plane. Mediums who engage for profit, of course, in receiving messages from the astral plane have tried with vim and with vigor to drum up trade by the spirit of the ghost of Tesla. But Tesla is not a ghost, nor did he stand a ghost of a chance of being a ghost. Tesla was an adept, an initiate, a Venusian. He was at all times earth-free. He was never earth-bound. Naturally, Tesla did not go around bragging about these matters, but when he did meet up with a server of the light, Tesla lost no time in engaging in a good talk fest. Both Matthews and Carr have carried out Tesla's work since 1943 without the slightest difficulty. When asked how best to approach the work of Tesla, how to understand his discoveries, both Matthew and Carr have a standard answer. If you wish to understand Tesla, you must attune your mind to God. Tesla and his twin ray, the white dove, who was his constant companion on Earth, are now working in the scientific department of Shambhala, and they do overshadow disciples. But it should be clearly understood that this overshadowing process, when conducted by an initiate, is in no sense related to any type of psychism or mediumship. Every initiate overshadows disciples, otherwise there would be no point in evolution if the higher energies could not in some manner direct lower energies. Every initiate must have disciples in the world of form. Disciples are called upon to operate typewriters, design machinery, and do all the other chores of the workaday world. A disciple is an outpost of consciousness for an adept. What the reader might ask is the outstanding characteristic which distinguishes a Tesla disciple. In every case, a Tesla disciple is, consciously or unconsciously, affiliated with one or more of the Masters of Wisdom, and is a student in a master ashram, although this fact may be known only on the inner planes. Every Tesla disciple is working with the energies from at least 5 cosmic rays, and is usually unconscious of his correct ray status, as knowledge of this kind can easily become a source of pride and therefore a handicap. Every Tesla disciple extends the hand of friendship to our interplanetary neighbors. Every Tesla disciple is already firmly oriented in the New Age and has unbounded enthusiasm for a free and joyous world. Many persons who worked with Tesla, for Tesla, or who were associated with him closely, as was John J. O'Neill, have expressed disappointment that Tesla did not leave a heritage of great scientific secrets, which could be explored and, of course, exploited. But Tesla, the Venusian, had no secrets. Only Earth people are greedy enough and stupid enough to have secrets. The Venusians, Martians, and visitors from other planets who fly through the Earth's atmosphere daily have no secrets either. They have a message: love ye one another. But Earth people have successfully ignored that message for at least 2,000 years, and they might go right on ignoring it, save for a New Age developments based on application of universal law. Such application was the clue to all of Tesla's achievements. He was a discoverer, not a mere inventor. There seems to be no records of Tesla revealing his identity as a Venusian during his Earth life, but when the announcement of this fact was made to Mr. Matthews by the space people, it did not come as a surprise in most quarters, because by then it was generally known that at least 10 million people from other planets had been infiltrated into the Earth's population. It had long been known that most of the masters of wisdom, down through the centuries, were volunteers from other worlds, but it seemed doubtful for a time that Tesla himself had been personally aware of his origin during his physical plane life on Earth. However, it now appears that he did understand his mission, which was actually to prepare the planet Earth for the space age. The fact that he told Otis T. Carr so much about other planets indicates that he was quite familiar with the subject. He frankly told Carr that he, Carr, was destined to explore space. Tesla also gave Mr. Matthews the design for the interplanetary communications set in 1938. Another clear indication that Tesla knew that other planets were inhabited, and he obviously knew they possessed spaceships. He told Mr. Matthews that the set should be built in a few years after 1938, at which time spaceships from other worlds would approach the Earth. Tesla never married and had never had any romantic attachments or even close friendships with either men or women, except in certain cases where the bond was one of discipleship or where some useful purpose would be served for the benefit of humanity. Tesla not only lived alone in hotels, but he lived behind locked doors. Only occasionally was a maid permitted to enter his room to clean it. However, Otis T. Carr, over a period of 3 years, was his daily visitor, and Tesla explained to Carr that visitors were not normally allowed because coming into his suite from the harsh outside world, they immediately lowered the vibrations in the rooms in which Tesla had to live and work and commune with his creator. Mr. Carr had explained that often when he came to Tesla's suite, bringing the 4 pounds of unsalted peanuts, Tesla would ask him to just sit down and relax for an hour or more. Not a word would be spoken between the two men. Yet when Carr rose to leave, he would feel refreshed and inspired. The vibrations in the room had done the necessary work, attuning and purifying his 4 lower bodies. Tesla had another trusted friend in the person of Boris D. Tanko, a New York publisher. Mr. D. Tanko has related how, Saturday after Saturday, he used to meet Tesla for luncheon at the old hotel Brevoort on Lower Fifth Avenue, a place famous for its fine French cuisine. Mr. D. Tanko always found these luncheon visits highly inspiring, though unusual in some respects. He said that often the two of them sat together at the table in complete silence for well over an hour. Finally, Tesla would speak, and then the illuminating conversation would flow like molten gold. Both Mr. Matthews and Mr. Carr received from Tesla a great deal of confidential information about future world conditions and developments concerning the emergence of the New Age civilization. Most of this information had to do with space, with spaceships, space people, and interplanetary communications. When Tesla shed his physical body in 1943, it was apparent that he was leaving the physical plane of manifest appearances to enter into more subtle vibrations which were invisible to the average man. These vibrations were not invisible to Tesla. He was completely clairvoyant, clairaudient, and telepathic, as is any adept. Again, it must be stressed that this type of clarity has nothing whatever to do with mediumship or psychism. The latter belongs to the animal kingdom. Tesla was never really at home on the physical plane, dealing with matter in its harshest state. In the subtle worlds, he was completely free. Yet for 87 of the most difficult years ever visited upon this planet, Tesla carried on his work like the great gentleman he was. In retrospect, the pattern of his physical sojourn in the world of form, which seems so complex to writers like John O'Neill, emerges in simple clarity. Tesla had obviously agreed to come to the Earth as a volunteer worker to assist in launching the new age, which he knew to be synonymous with the space age. It is perfectly apparent that ascended Master Saint Germain had to bring in people from other planets, people with knowledge of outer space conditions, to handle the major aspects of the planned program. Tesla was designated to work on the third ray of love in action, for that is the ray which supplies our atmosphere with electricity. The first three major rays form the three aspects of God as defined by major religions. The four minor rays provide what we recognize as God's attributes. Christianity correctly defines the first three rays as a trinity, representing the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The first, or Father aspect, is derived from the ray of power and purpose. The second, the Son aspect, is the ray of illumination and wisdom, leading to intelligent love in action, or the third ray. Originally, we were all sons of God, or sparks from the great central sun of the galaxy. From the strictly scientific point of view, the first three rays provide life, light, and electricity to this planet. The fourth ray of purity leads men through conflict to harmony. The fifth ray is that of concrete science and knowledge and provides the world of form with an understandable functional basis. The sixth ray energizes all of man's ideals and ideologies, whether wise or foolish. During the Piscean age, it led to the rise of Christianity and churchianity, and to all sorts of experimental economic and political systems. Then follows the seventh ray, now in manifestation, the ray which is now being called into action to transmute and release mankind from all past eras accumulated during 19 million years of struggle since the laggards came. Now, I'm going to interject this. I didn't read the first part of this book, The Return of the Dove, but the laggards are the outcasts from other planets who didn't get to re-enter their planet because they had failed to evolve, and so they let them come to Earth, which was young, and they contaminated Earth. And the laggards are still here, still lagging. Anyway, you'd have to hear the whole thing to understand more about the laggards, but just to let you know what she's talking about here when she says laggards. At the present time, and for centuries past, all individuals who desired so-called occult knowledge have been regularly taken into the various ray temples or retreats for training at night while the physical body lies sleeping. The temples are open 24 hours a day around the globe, so their facilities are always available to students. It should not be considered that this training is mystical. It is strictly utilitarian and practical, and is designed to make physical plane living easier and more wholesome. It is designed to lead not to death, but to the ascension for each individual. For example, every great musical composer down through the ages has been a temple student. Some composers are able to bring through their memories with greater accuracy than others. Wagner was an outstanding student in the music temple, and during his waking hours he was able to bring through musical notations with scarcely a deviation from the original temple teachings. The story of Lohengrin is one of his finest examples. It is presumed that Tesla not only had the usual free access to the temples during his sleeping hours, but that he also had direct communication while in full waking consciousness. This is not unusual for even an advanced student. It is the normal practice for initiates. In the outer world, there is no information available on Tesla's exact evolutionary status on Venus. But it is known that the entire Venusian race is considered adept from our point of view. However, when space people take Earth bodies, they are often mercifully granted certain mental blockages for their own protection. That is, if a Venusian had a full and complete memory of his life on Venus, he would find it well nigh impossible to cope daily with Earth situations. Even the initiate Jesus did not have a complete mental grasp of his true mission until he was more than 12 years of age. It was then that he was taken to India for personal training under the supervision of his great teacher, the Christ, known in the outer world as Lord Maitreya. John J. O'Neill has written a most detailed story of Tesla's life and scientific work in Prodigal Genius. But for those readers who are just becoming oriented in this field of study, it might be well to pause here for a brief review of the highlights that lighted the path of the man who came to Earth to bring electricity to our homes and factories and illumination to our darkened minds. Historians agree that Nikola Tesla was born at midnight between July the 9th and 10th in the year of 1856. Nikola himself hinted on a few occasions that this was not the date of his birth. These hints were disregarded, along with hundreds of other statements made by Tesla, because in most quarters he was regarded as being a bit impractical. This was not a criticism, for his genius was so highly respected that it was generally conceded that he did not have to measure up to conventional standards. He was to be allowed his little eccentricities, his passing fancies. The space people have now stated that Nikola was born on board their ship on a flight from Venus, and that they landed on the Earth at midnight between July the 9th and 10th, 1856. When the space people say that Nikola was born on board one of their ships, they do not mean that it was a physical birth. Physical conception and the birthing processes known on this planet are not used elsewhere. A sex system was introduced here after the laggards came, in order to keep the race in manifestation and to provide for re-embodiments in groups bound by karma. This allowed karmic debts to be paid off in kind under the old law of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. On other planets, positive and negative light rays are used to produce a physical form, which can be occupied by an evolving life stream. The form is of full stature. It is only on this planet that tiny baby forms are utilized. And now, I don't want to end this in mid-sentence because my cell phone I'm using does that. So I'm going to end it here, and I'll begin at this place in the next session. And tomorrow I will read another portion, and each day I will read about 25 minutes worth of this, and you will hear it all. So this is the Dove Lady, over and out for now.